worship it's a very broad thing. Worship really is everything that we do. We live our life as an act of worship according to Romans. Romans 12:1 tells us that, let's see, therefore I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And so we live our lives as worship. So everything we do, when we go to work, we're worshiping God. When we go the different places that we do, the different things that we do, we're worshiping God. And so this morning, to save some time, we're going to narrow it down quite a bit, because like I said, you guys know that I could preach quite a while on everything that we do for God. So we're going to narrow it down this morning, and we're going to talk just about the worship through singing, because in church we worship through song. We have singing every week, and actually, throughout. You can look at our church. We have 3 services, 3 completely different ways that people worship through song. And so we do that here. And then if you look at churches all around, almost every single church in this country have some form of worship through song in every single service. There's always a part of that. And so worship through song is important. It's valuable as a Christian, and we value that. But why? Why do we sing? Why do we make that a time of our church service? And so this morning we're gonna look at that a little bit. And so really we're gonna ask the question: why do we as Christians put so much value in worship? And really, to understand that, we need to know really what worship is all, what our focus is on worship. In John chapter 4. Jesus is talking to the woman at the well. And in verse 21, starting in verse 21, he says, Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, an hour is coming when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You will worship what you worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. Excuse me. For such people the Father seeks to be his worshipers. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth." And so he's talking about this worship being there's 2 things. He says the worship is to be spirit and truth. You see, back in biblical times, there was a group of Gentiles, and they worshiped wherever they could. Wherever they could. I mean, they didn't put the importance in Jerusalem. They were going to worship God up on top of a mountain or wherever they could get to worship. And so they had the spirit of worship. I mean, they wanted to worship God, but as Jesus said, he said, you worship what you do not know. You're not looking at the truth of the matter, because Old Testament scripture said you must do what you need to do in Jerusalem. But then on the other hand, there were several Jews that had the mentality, well, we're in Jerusalem, we're doing what's right, but it became more of just let's figure out what's right, but there was no emotion involved. There was no spirit involved, and so worship takes both. Worship takes both spirit and truth. And so this morning we're going to look at that. Worship through song is designed to tap into both the truth and the spiritual side. If we have just the emotion when we're singing, it doesn't work. And songs and music in general naturally attach themselves to our emotional side. And now I don't really consider myself to be a very emotional person. I don't like showing emotion, and I just, it's not manly. That's what I was taught then. But that's not it. I know that's not right, but that's just how I feel. And I just don't like emotion. But I get emotionally attached to songs. A couple of years ago, I noticed this. I like older rock, 70s rock, 80s rock. I like that. And one song in particular that I like, many of you probably have heard it, it's Come Sail Away by the Styx. And they sing this song, and it's like 10 minutes long. And that might be, it might be 15 minutes if you get the full version. That thing it goes on forever. But for those of you who know the song, it starts out real calm, real piano, real, very peaceful. It's very just, da, 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 and so I was, yeah, thank you. Boy, later on I'm going to do 4 specials. No. But anyway, so I noticed I was driving along. I was north of Soldier on the Soldier Road, in between Goff and Soldier, and I was driving along. This song came on. I was like, oh, great. And I was just enjoying myself. I was driving down the road, and I looked down. I was going about 45 miles an hour. I was like, hey, that's okay. That's okay. Nice, calming, come sail away, and I'm just driving along, not really paying attention, really getting into the song, and didn't even realize that I was really emotionally connected with the song. I just enjoyed listening to it. And, later on, if you know the song speeds up towards the end. Towards the end, you're really coming along, all right, and rocking along. Well, I looked down, as we got to the end of the song, I was going 70 miles an hour north of Soldier, and I didn't know why, We get emotionally attached through music. The thing is this week I thought about that, and I thought, what in the world is the song Come Sail Away all about? I couldn't even tell you the lyrics, really, because when I sing the song, I sing like this. I don't know the words. But I thought about, boy, that's a perfect example of how we get tied emotionally. Well, I thought, boy, I need to check and make sure there's no underlying messages or something in that, because I could care less what the song's about. I just like the beat. And so we get, and that song in particular, it connects with me on an emotional level, but I have no care of the world of what it's actually talking about. And so we've got to be careful in our worship when we come to church on Sunday mornings and we worship through song. We've got to be careful that we don't just get in that mindset of, oh, I really like this beat, this really hopping, if we're not focusing on what the message of the song is. Because worship, if we worship with emotion but no truth or no comprehension of, okay, this mentally is this, then we miss out. We're not actually engaged in true worship. Isaiah 29:13 says, Then the Lord said, Because this people draw near with their words and honor me with their lip service, but they remove their hearts far from me, and their reverence for me consists of tradition learned. That sticks to me. I grew up in a very traditional church. We had hymnal music, and there are hymns that are some of the most powerful songs in the world, and that I can, when I actually sit down and worship, I really am involved. But there are times, if I'm not careful, that I can sit in first service and I can just be singing along just because I've sang that song for 29 years and not really be thinking about what I'm singing, and not really worshiping God, because really all I'm doing is just humming a song that I've sang forever. And so if we're mentally checked out, we're not worshiping. And so it takes a mental part to our emotion. Now, on the other end, we need to have an emotional connection to what we're singing, to the way we're worshiping, because honestly, worship is an expression to God on our relationship. So when we express the love that we have to God, it's got to involve some emotion. If you and if we are in a relationship, and I know every single one of you are in at least one, if not several, whether that be a relationship with a spouse, with a boyfriend, girlfriend, with kids, with parents, those close relationships that we have, if we know everything about our partner in our relationship, but we don't ever really share an emotional need or tie or anything like that, that relationship's not going to work. It's not going to work because there's an emotional need that needs to be there. And so when we worship God, there needs to be an emotional connection there. And that's why as a church we have provided, we've sat down and we've said, okay, what do we need to do church service-wise to connect people with God musically? And so that's why we have a first service and we have hymns, because there are people in first service, they connect with God that way. And that's why we have Cowboy Church, because you connect with God through bluegrass music. That's what gets you going. That connects with you emotionally. And then in third service, there's an emotional tie with that music and that group of people. And so we're trying to provide areas to where it's easier for you to not only connect through truth, but to connect emotionally. Because that relationship that you have with God needs to connect both ways. 1 Chronicles 16, starting in verse 23, says this: Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Proclaim good tidings of his salvation from day to day. Tell of his glory among the nations, his wonderful deeds among all the peoples. For great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. He also is to be feared above all gods, for all the gods of the peoples are idols. But the Lord made the heavens, splendor and majesty, and before him strength and joy are in his place. Ascribe to the Lord, O families of the peoples. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord due his name. Bring an offering and come before him. Worship the Lord in holy array. Tremble before him, all the earth. Indeed, the world is firmly established. It will not be moved. Let the heavens be glad, and let the earth rejoice. And let them say among the nations, the Lord reigns. We're going to spend some time this morning. Really, I'm at the end of my notes. We're going to spend some extra time this morning, and we're just going to have the band. They're going to come back up, and we're going to spend some time worshiping together, and give you and I the opportunity to worship through some of these songs, and to not only engage emotionally and really enjoy, but to engage truthfully, and to focus on what we're singing, and do that. So let's pray, and then let's have a time of worship. God, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for the opportunity that we have to sing, the opportunity that we have to worship you, to know you. God, I pray this morning that you would focus our hearts, and you would help us worship in spirit and in truth.